In 2017, Hillard Kaplan and his team published a study in The Lancet. They scanned the hearts of 705 Tsimane adults, an indigenous group living in the Bolivian Amazon. 85% had zero detectable plaque in their arteries, not low, zero. If you live in the U.S., you probably know someone who has had stents or bypass surgery or a family history of heart attacks. That is not unusual here. In a large NIH study called MESA, 86% of American adults aged 45 to 84 already had measurable plaque in their coronary arteries. More than half had serious accumulation. This video goes through exactly what the Tsimane eat, how much they move, and which factors the researchers believe explain the difference. One thing I'm covering near the end is not a food, not a supplement. It costs nothing. And it is the piece that most people, even the ones who already eat well, miss completely. Hit subscribe. I will get to it before the end. The condition at the center of this video is coronary atherosclerosis. That is plaque building up inside the arteries that feed your heart. The plaque is made mostly of LDL cholesterol, what your doctor calls bad cholesterol. When LDL levels stay high over time, it seeps into the artery wall. Your immune system tries to fight it. Over years, that fight becomes a growing lump of fat and debris. When the lump cracks, a clot forms. Blood flow stops. That is a heart attack. Most people assume this is just what happens when you get older. Wear and tear. Inevitable. The Tsimane do not support that idea. An 80-year-old Tsimane man has arteries that look, on a CT scan, like those of a 50-year-old American. That is not a genetic fluke. They are not carrying some unusual mutation. They are just living differently.
Their arteries are about 28 years younger than arteries of Westerners based on the coronary calcium numbers.
The clearest proof that genes are not the deciding factor comes from Okinawa, Japan. Traditional Okinawans had some of the lowest rates of coronary heart disease ever recorded. After World War II, American food culture swept through the islands. Within a single generation, the protection was gone. By 2005, Okinawan men had lost their longevity advantage over the Japanese national average entirely. Wilcox et al. Documented this in the Journal of Gerontology Biological Sciences in 2006. Same genes, different food, different outcome. Traditional Japanese populations on the mainland showed the same thing before 1960. Low-fat diets, high physical activity, and almost no coronary heart disease. The disease followed the Western diet into Japan, not the other way around. The first piece is what the Tsimane eat, not the general shape of the diet, the specific detail that keeps their LDL low. About 64% of their daily calories come from unrefined, complex carbohydrates. Green plantain, cassava, that is a starchy root similar to a potato. Corn, locally grown rice. These are boiled or roasted whole. Almost nothing is processed. Only about 2% of their total calories come from store-bought food, things like white sugar or commercial cooking oil. Kraft et al. Tracked 1,299 Tsimane adults over 5 years and confirmed this pattern held in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2018. Their daily fiber intake was roughly 26 to 29 grams, 1.5 to 2 times what the average American eats. Soluble fiber, the kind found in those whole starches, binds to LDL cholesterol in the gut before it can be absorbed. It physically removes it. Their saturated fat intake was about 11 grams per day. The U.S. average is around 26 grams. Kaplan et al. Reported the result in The Lancet in 2017. The average LDL in the Tsimane cohort was 91 milligrams per deciliter. The average American LDL sits around 120. That gap matters. LDL is the raw material of arterial plaque. Less of it circulating means less available to lodge in artery walls. Tonight, try this. Have dinner with one whole food starch, sweet potato, lentils, beans, brown rice, instead of something refined. That is it. No overhaul. Just one swap, one meal. That is 30% of the picture. What comes next is where most people, even the ones who eat well, make a mistake that cancels this out. The second piece is not food. It is how much you move during the day, not in a gym, but across all the hours you are awake. The Tsimane do not have an exercise routine. They do not block out 45 minutes. They just never stop moving. Men spend 6 to 7 hours a day farming, hunting, and fishing. Women spend 4 to 6 hours on household work, gathering, and food preparation. Kaplan et al. Reported this in The Lancet in 2017. Less than 10% of their waking hours are spent sitting still. In the U.S., the figure is more than 54%. Dr. Gregory Thomas, one of the senior authors on the Lancet study, told reporters at the time of publication that Tsimane men averaged around 17,000 steps a day and women around 16,000. For context, the average American adult takes roughly 5,000 steps a day. That is a gap you cannot close with a statin. And here is why this piece cannot be replaced by a pill or supplement. Exercise does something to your blood pressure and to your lipoprotein particles, the vehicles that carry cholesterol, that diet alone does not replicate. Cornelison and Smart reviewed 93 clinical trials in the Journal of the American Heart Association in 2013 and found that regular aerobic exercise lowered systolic blood pressure by an average of 3.5 millimeters of mercury, and by more than 8 points in people who already had high blood pressure. Diet changes those numbers too, but the effects are separate and they add up. Slentz and colleagues ran a 6-month trial called SURRIDE-I, published in the American Heart Journal in 2011. They found that exercise improved lipoprotein particle quality, making LDL particles larger and less damaging, independent of whatever the participants were eating. People who ate poorly still got that benefit from moving. People who ate well but did not exercise did not get it from food alone. So here's how these two pieces work together. The Tsimane diet keeps LDL cholesterol low. The movement keeps blood pressure low and improves the quality of the cholesterol that does circulate. One reduces the raw material available for plaque. The other makes the artery wall less vulnerable to whatever gets through. They work in the same direction, through different paths. You now have 2 of the 3 pieces. The third is the one researchers almost did not include in the paper because it looked too simple to matter. Here's what I said I would come back to. The Tsimane live without electricity. When it gets dark, they stop. They eat within the hours of daylight. They do not snack at midnight. They do not eat in front of a screen at 11 p.m. Their bodies spend a long stretch of every night, roughly 12 to 14 hours, in a fasted state, not by design, just by the rhythm of the day. The researchers almost left this out of the analysis. They were focused on what people ate and how much they moved. The overnight eating window looked like background noise, but it may be one of the more important variables in the whole picture. Here is the simple biology. Every time you eat, your insulin rises. Insulin's job is to move glucose into cells and store what is left over as fat. While insulin is elevated, your body does not burn fat. It stores it. It also keeps blood glucose higher for longer. Persistently high blood glucose damages the lining of your arteries. That lining is the exact surface where plaque begins. When you stop eating for an extended stretch, insulin falls, blood glucose drops. The body begins drawing on stored fat for fuel instead. Hoedal demonstrated in the Journal of Clinical Investigation in 1988 that fasting also triggers a rise in growth hormone. That is, the hormone responsible for protecting your muscle from being broken down while your body runs on fat. The body is not starving. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do in the hours between meals. This pattern appears across multiple populations with low rates of heart disease, and those populations are not related to each other. Traditional Okinawans had a practice called harahakibu, eating until about 80% full and stopping. Wilcox et al. Documented in the Journal of Gerontology in 2006 that caloric restriction of this kind was a consistent feature of the population's historically low rates of coronary artery disease. In Muslim-majority countries, Ramadan provides a natural experiment. Nemati et al. Found in Nutrition Journal in 2012 that a 30-day period of daily fasting, eating only within a restricted window, produced measurable reductions in blood glucose, blood pressure, and total cholesterol in cardiovascular patients. Different country, different religion, different food, the same direction of change. And the Tsimane themselves, no electricity, no midnight snacking, near zero arterial plaque. 3 populations, 3 different continents, the same basic pattern. The body gets a regular long break from food. One honest limitation: extended fasting is not for everyone. If you take insulin or medication for diabetes, skipping meals can cause dangerous drops in blood sugar. The same applies if you take sulfonylureas, a class of diabetes drug, or if you have a history of disordered eating or low body weight. If any of those apply to you, speak with your doctor before changing your eating window. This is a practice, not a supplement, and the dose matters. 3 things. Here is exactly what to do with each one. 1. Change the anchor of 1 meal per day. Pick 1 meal. Most people find dinner easiest. Replace the refined starch, white bread, white pasta, white rice, crackers with a whole food starch. Sweet potato, lentils, chickpeas, brown rice, oats, boiled or roasted, nothing complicated. You are not overhauling your diet. You are shifting the base of 1 meal towards something with more fiber and less saturated fat. Aim for this at least 5 days a week. That is the target, not perfection, consistency. 2. Add walking to the middle of your day. Not a gym session, not a workout, a walk. The Tsimane are not sedentary for more than 10% of their waking hours. Most of us are sedentary for more than half. The research does not suggest you need to close that gap completely. It suggests you need to start closing it. A 20 to 30-minute walk after lunch or dinner is the single most studied, most accessible version of this. If you already walk, add 10 minutes. Do it most days. That is it. 3. Set a kitchen closing time. Pick a time at night after which you stop eating. Aim for a gap of at least 12 hours between your last meal and your first the next morning. If you finish dinner at 7 p.m., breakfast starts at 7 a.m. That is all this is. You are not doing an extreme fast. You are letting your insulin come down overnight and stay down. Start with 12 hours. Some people move to 13 or 14 over time, but 12 is enough to begin. 3 markers to track. Ask your GP for these at your next visit. Fasting LDL cholesterol, fasting blood glucose, resting blood pressure. These are standard tests. Any GP can order them. Get a baseline now, then recheck at 90 days. What to expect and when. At 7 days, do not expect numbers to change. What you may notice is that your energy after meals feels steadier. Fewer afternoon crashes, that is your blood glucose responding to less refined starch. At 30 days, some people see a small drop in fasting glucose. Sleep quality often improves when the kitchen closes earlier. Weight may shift slightly, but that is not the goal here. Do not use the scale as your measure of progress. At 90 days, request the blood tests. The changes most likely to show up are in fasting glucose and LDL. Blood pressure responds more slowly and is more sensitive to the walking habit than to diet alone. If your numbers have not shifted, that is useful information too. It means a conversation with your doctor about what else might be driving your risk. We started with 705 people in the Bolivian Amazon. Almost none of them had any detectable plaque in their arteries. And the explanation turns out to be 3 things that have been available to every human being who has ever lived. Tonight, pick one of them. Set a kitchen closing time. Decide when the eating stops. That is 5 seconds of decision, and it costs nothing. Next week, I am looking at another population, different continent, different diet, and one number in their blood work that almost no Western doctor routinely checks. It might be the most important number you have never heard of. If that sounds like something worth knowing, the subscribe button is right there. Tell me in the comments, when did you last have your LDL checked, and did your doctor actually explain what the number meant? I read every single one. What you say here shapes what I make next.